We kind of finished up conversational selling skills, and we talked about each step of the six-step process. I think last time we finished up negotiating and closing, yes?
Correct.
Did we cover objections and rebuttals? I think we did, but I'm not positive.
I think we did too. Hold on, I don't recall it. Give me 1 second. We had to have.
I think that's
you know
how
what
we
it was,
ended
and I
up
remember
last
that
time.
back. Yeah,
Yeah.
you did, and you were
We
talking
talked
about how you have to make sure you understand it.
Yeah, we want to try to uncover any objections before we ask for the order, and we do that by asking trial closes, by asking the right questions, and by asking enough of them so that we uncover the objections before it's time to say yes or no, because once somebody has no in their mind, to start overcoming objections, it's an uphill battle rather than covering all the objections before we actually ask them to buy so that they don't have no in their mind, and it's a much easier road to travel, and I say it results in more sales. Do objections sometimes come up after we've tried to close? Absolutely, but my goal is to get all the objections out of the way before we ask for the business. And of course, we went over that you have to determine, is this a real objection, which would mean it's something you can work with and you might be able to help the customer to work past, or is it smoke, meaning it's a waste of your time because they are really just saying no but not using the word no because they don't want to be what they think is impolite. And in that case, the best thing you can do is help them to say no, thank them for their time, let them know you want to work with them in the future if that ever is appropriate, try to get some referrals, and then leave skid marks in the driveway trying to get out. I know we talked many times, and I'll just remind you one more time that it's crucial that we always want to move the meeting forward, move the sales process forward, and we do that by always getting a best next action step, and that means before ending any meeting or any phone call, we already set up the next meeting and phone call right then and there so that we've got some next step which includes, which indicates to us that the prospect is interested in potentially becoming a buyer. They're not telling us that they'll definitely buy when they do that, but they are telling us they're interested enough to give us more of their valuable time after they've given us some of their valuable time, and that's a good indication that this is somebody who you should work hard on because they're playing the game your way. They're moving things forward. All right, so let's get into telephone prospecting. The first thing that's crucial when you're prospecting in any way, but certainly over the telephone, is to understand that metrics rule. Metrics are crucial. And I'll start by, especially this is useful since you know that I used to work for Steve Schiffman, and I'll tell you about the first time I actually met Steve. Now, I had heard of Steve for years, before he's a famous sales trainer, written a bunch of books, and when I met Steve, it was in his office, and after having gone through several levels of sub-managers, and now it's time for me to meet the boss. The guy who's going to give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Am I going to get the job? Am I not going to get the job? And even though at that point I had a heck of a lot of experience behind me and no shortage of confidence, it's still a little nerve-wracking to meet A, hopefully your future boss, and B, the self-proclaimed America's #1 corporate sales trainer. So you want things to go well. And I always equate it to The Wizard of Oz, the movie The Wizard of Oz. I'm guessing you've seen that movie, right?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So Steve, much like myself, has a fairly large ego, a very healthy ego. And one of the ways Steve used to express that healthy ego was Steve had a really large office. I'm talking, it was massive. I bet, and I never actually measured it, but I'll bet it was easily 20 feet wide and about 40 feet long, maybe even longer. In fact, when Steve's assistant opened the double doors to lead into his office, it was kind of like in the movie The Wizard of Oz when they get to meet Oz. They're standing at the back of those doors, and the doors open. Right. There's this long hallway, and the head is floating in midair. And that's actually what it looked like to me. Steve's head was floating in the air, and flames were coming up from the side of his desk, and his voice boomed out and said, "Hi, I'm Steve Schiffman, America's #1 corporate sales trainer." It was a funny moment, but a little bit terrifying. I was kind of like the cowardly lion at that moment, standing at the back of this long kind of hallway leading up to his desk. My knees were shaking, and my teeth were chattering, and I was inside my head kind of praying that, please God, don't let me trip and fall or do something stupid on my way to shaking this guy's hand because I'd like to get this job. And somehow I actually made it down this long hallway, and I shook Steve's hand, and he said to sit down, and we started having a conversation like you do on a job interview. And then Steve asked me a question. And it was one of those questions on a job interview where I knew if I answered the question right, I was going to get the job. And I knew if I answered the question wrong, that I was going to walk out with the same thing that I walked in with, which was nothing. Right. And the question that Steve asked me was, Jeff, tell me about your numbers. And those are the exact words he said. He said, Jeff, tell me about your numbers. Now, I'm a sales professional. I've been doing this a long time, and at that moment I said, oh, I know exactly what he wants. And I told him how much I sold in total sales volume the prior year. I said, Steve, here's how much I sold in total sales volume last year, and I gave him a big number. And he responded, no, that's not what I'm talking about. And, of course, he said it like Steve Shiffman. He said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. And if you've met him in person, you know that's a pretty good impression.
Yeah, I'm ready to hear you say afterwards, he said, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
He said that at a different meeting. But in this one, what he said was, no, that's not what I'm talking about. And he repeated himself and said, tell me about your numbers. And at that point, I had one of those moments where you see everything flashing before your eyes. And what I actually saw was the job that I wanted very much flying out the window, because I thought I had answered his question correctly, and clearly I hadn't. And I didn't know what to do. And, of course, you know, at that moment, my mind is going a million miles a minute going, what the heck is he talking about? I told him what I sold in total sales volume. He still wants my numbers. I don't know what he means. And I actually said, Steve, I just told you, here's how much I sold last year. And he repeated himself again and said, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Let me show you what I'm looking for. And he pulled out a legal pad, and if you take a look at the page that's on your screen right now, he wrote down those first three numbers with the semicolon in between. He wrote 15, 7, and 1, and he pointed at those three numbers, and he said, this is what I mean. Now, I know you for a while. We've had many conversations, and you seem to be a pretty bright guy to me, so you're probably looking at the 15, 7, and 1 and going, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. But when I was sitting in Steve's office staring at those three numbers, the only thing that was going through my head was, holy Moses, am I screwed? I don't have a clue what this guy wants. And I actually said, Steve, I still don't know what you're talking about, and I guess I'm not going to get the job, but as long as I'm here, why don't you explain it to me? And he said, oh, sure, I'll be glad to. And what Steve said to me was, even though I'm the CEO of one of the 10 largest sales training companies in the entire known universe, every day I have a lot of important things to do, and I'm a very, very busy man, but every day I pick up the phone and I dial it 15 times. And he put a little D above the word 15. I dial the phone 15 times. And then he said, Jeff, when I dial the phone 15 times each and every day, I speak to 7 people, or I get 7 what we call completed calls. And I stopped him there and I said, I'm not sure what you mean by a completed call. He goes, I'm glad you asked. He said, a completed call is when you get through to the person that you wanted to speak with, or to somebody who can set an appointment for them without asking. So in other words, you've gotten through to the decision maker. So if you would, if you're taking notes on this, please put a little CC above the number 7 and a little D above the 15, which stands for dials. So he said, every day I pick up... I'm sorry?
I'm on this. You've gone over this one with me briefly before, so I already have a page devoted.
Beautiful. Okay. So I'll move it a little faster. So he said, I dial the phone 15 times a day. You're good? Okay. He said, I dial the phone 15 times a day, and when I do, I speak to 7 people. And then he said, Jeff, when I speak to 7 people, I set 1 appointment. So you put a little A above the first number 1, the one on the top line. And at that point, it all made sense to me. So it was his dials to completed calls to appointments ratio, and that made perfect sense. I wish I had known that before when he had asked me the question, and I probably would not have been able to give him the numbers. I would have had to made something up off the top of my head, but at least I understood, and we were on the same page. He then said, Jeff, I do this 5 days a week. I dial the phone 15 times a day, 5 days a week. I speak to 7 people 5 days a week, and I set 1 appointment each and every day, 5 days a week. And he said, how many appointments do you think I'm going to have next week? And I gave him the answer that I think that you would give, which was Steve, I think you're going to have 5 appointments next week. And he said, and I know on your screen it says 3, but he wrote down 8. He wrote down an 8 where the 3 is on your screen. And he said, Jeff, I have 8 appointments next week. And I said, really? Well, I don't understand. If you set 1 appointment a day and you're 5 working days in a week, that's 5 appointments a week. And he goes, well, I set 5 new appointments each week. But I go out on 3 other sales calls that are second, third, or fourth sales calls each week also, because I don't usually close things in 1 call. And so once again, that made sense to me. So he had an 8 where the 3 is on your screen. And then he finally finished up by saying, Jeff, when I sit down with 8 people, I close 1. So on that second line over the number 1, you might want to put a $sign or a C for closed. So again, I know you've got a 3 on your screen, but Steve said, I dial the phone 15 times a day, I speak to 7 people, I set 1 appointment, I go on 8 appointments a week, and I close 1. And then he said to me, Jeff, I do this 50 weeks per year. 50 weeks per year, which meant that Steve was going to close 50 accounts per year. All making sense so far?
Yes.
Good. The question I have for you is, why do you think Steve would open 50 accounts per year? And if we've already gone over this, you should probably have the answer pretty quickly. Do you remember?
No, he's adding 50 new accounts, and all I recall that is him adding 50 new accounts per year. I don't know. Obviously, money is the reason, but I don't know what else.
Exactly right. The reason that Steve would open up 50 accounts per year was because that's how many accounts Steve needed to personally open per year to make enough money to hit his goal. Besides what guys like me who were working for him brought in, he needed to personally open up 50 new accounts per year in order to hit his goal or his personal quota. And goals are important and quotas are important. I've written a book on how to set and achieve goals, but of the numbers you're looking at right now, the 50 accounts is the least important number. The most important number is the 15. Steve has figured out by tracking his numbers accurately over time that for him, if he dials the phone 15 times every single day, at the end of the year, he's going to wind up with 50 new accounts based on his personal metrics and what he knows about himself through tracking his numbers. So he knows his closing ratio is 8 to 1, and he knows his dials to completed calls ratio is 15 to 7, and then his completed calls to appointment ratio is 7 to 1. And he only knows that because he's tracked these numbers accurately over time. Now here's the thing. Almost everybody will tell you that sales is a numbers game. And to a certain extent, it is. You know, the old thing, if you throw enough stuff at the wall, some of it's going to stick.
Yes.
So clearly, the more stuff you throw at the wall, the more that's going to stick. The more dials you make, the more people you're going to get through to, the more appointments you're going to set, the more you're going to sit down with, the more you're going to close. But that's not a recipe for huge sales success. Sales is not just a numbers game. It's actually a ratios game or a metrics game. And if you look at the page that we're talking about, that we're on now, I've got the letters above the numbers that I'd like for you to have. So you've got the D is for dials, the C is for completed calls, the A is for appointments, the V is for sales visits, which is over the 3, but again, Steve's was at 8, and the $sign means closed sales. And when you know your own personal numbers, there's 5 ways for you to make more money. 5 different ways you make more money.
Can I stop you for 1 second? Can I stop you? I apologize. Just a quick question on that. We're getting the number 3 from what? That went right over my head.
The 3 is sales visits.
Right, no, I know what
Steve's was actually 8.
How come we went from
8 to 3?
Okay, right. We're just using 3. Why 3? It's your number? I'm confused about that. I apologize.
Because if Steve Schiffman happens to see this, I don't want to get sued. So I just used a different number. You know, everybody tracks activity, but I sure don't want to use his numbers. And truthfully, I shouldn't be sued anyways because I'm just telling you a true story about when I met him, but it's to illustrate the point. But it doesn't matter. Look, actually, it certainly does matter. I'd rather have a 3 to 1 closing ratio than an 8 to 1 closing ratio, which is pretty piss poor.
I absolutely love you, dude. You are the bomb. Thank you.
Well, I don't want to give him any no more fuel for his fire. He should live and be well and make $1 million and leave me alone. So there's 5 ways for you to make more money based on these numbers, whatever your personal numbers are. increasing the number of dials. So if we go back to this page and we take a look at the first one, which is 15, and again, by the way, those are just Steve's numbers. They're not my numbers. I don't expect them to be your numbers. They're not the numbers I'm recommending. These are just what my ex-boss, Steve Schiffman, used to do. So if you look at that first number, the 15, if you increase the number of dials, will you make more money?
Absolutely.
Of course, because if you make more dials, you'll get through to more people, you'll set more appointments, you'll go on more sales visits, and you'll close more business. Now, that's the first way. So increasing your number of dials. Now, the way I teach cold calling, it's very quick. So it's fairly easy to increase the number of dials that you're making in the same amount of time that you're making now, because most people are on the phone for somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes per appointment making call. I want you to be on the phone between 3 and 5 minutes tops. So you can make more calls in the same amount of time and make more money. The second way to improve your income based on these metrics is to improve your dials to completed calls ratio. So on the screen, that would be the 15 to 7, dials to completed calls, 15 to 7. If we can make the 15 to 7, 15 to 8, in other words, we're making the same amount of dials, but we're getting through to more people, will you make more money?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because even though we're making the same amount of dials, we're speaking to more people, so we should set more appointments, go on more sales visits, and close more business. So the second way to improve is to improve the dials to completed calls ratio. And most people, by the way, Jeff, think that's a pretty neat trick. How can you get more people to pick up the phone, more people to have conversations with you? Well, it is a neat trick, but really all you need to do is one of two things or both. First one is get better at getting past the gatekeeper. Get better at actually getting past the gatekeeper to speak to the decision maker, and the second way is to leave a better voicemail message so that people return your calls. Both of those will result in you speaking with more people and improving your dials to completed calls ratio. And we'll talk later on about how to do those things. The third way to make more money based on your ratios is to improve your completed calls to appointments ratio. So on your screen, that would be the 7 to 1. 7 to 1, or on that screen it's 7 to 1. So we want to get better once we get people on the phone at having them agree to give us an appointment. So once again, this doesn't take up more time. It just means you have a better technique once you get people on the phone at getting them to say yes. And once again, if we get more appointments, we'll go on more sales calls and we'll close more business. So the third way to improve your income based on your metrics is to improve your completed calls to appointments ratio. The fourth way is to improve your closing ratio, your visits to close ratio. In other words, on this page it's 3 to 1, or in Steve's it would be 8 to 1. 8 sales visits equal 1, it's 3 sales visits equal 1 sale. So if you can improve that, you'll also make more money. You can either make this 3 to 2, in other words, you go on the same amount of visits but close more business, or you can make it 2 to 1, have to go on less visits to close somebody, which either way you're going to close more business. My preference would be the second way. Close people faster, close people quicker. And the reason I want to do that is because if I close somebody quicker, they go out of my cycle and I can put somebody else into the beginning of the process, because I now have more time since I closed you to put time and attention on somebody else. So I'm always looking to figure out how can I close people quicker so that I can put more people into my pipeline. Is that tracking for you?
Yep.
Good. And the fifth way is to improve the sale itself, the number 1 there on that second line. Charge more, negotiate more effectively, cross-sell, upsell, charge more in the first place. All those things will improve your income. So there's 5 different ways to improve your income just based on knowing your own metrics. But if you're not tracking your own metrics, or if you don't know your own metrics because you're not tracking it accurately, or you're tracking it but you're not analyzing it, then those numbers are useless and you're using hope as a strategy. You're hoping that by getting in your car and driving, you'll wind up in New Orleans, which if you drive around America long enough, you may end up in New Orleans. But if you use your GPS or get a map, you're probably likely to get there far more quickly than if you just wander around the country hoping to wind up in New Orleans. So this is your map. Tracking your own metrics or your own numbers and analyzing them is your roadmap to you making more money via prospecting. This is just a sample of a sheet that I've used with other companies that people, reps can print out. And each day, as they're making their dials, they simply put tick marks in the right columns. So that first column says dial. Well, there's date. You put today's date in there. And then the next one says dial. So every time I dial the phone, I simply take a pencil and, you actually print this out and put a tick mark in there. If I dial the phone and I got through to the right person, it's a dial and a completed call. If I set an appointment, I put a tick mark in that third column, left a message, whether it's with a human being or a voicemail, it goes in the fourth column. And when somebody calls me back from a voicemail that I left or a message that I left, I would put a tick mark in that fifth column. That new inquiry phone calls received was for another company. I don't know if you get inquiry calls, but you would also want to track that too. In fact, the more metrics you track, the better off you are, as long as it doesn't get burdensome. See, the thing is, when you're dealing with salespeople, you want to keep this as easy as possible. So there's a million things I'd like to track, but these are the main things, and these will give me the information I need. From a management standpoint, if all I need these numbers, I'm happy, because I can tell what you're doing right based on these numbers and what you're doing wrong based on these numbers. And when I know what you're doing wrong, I can help you fix it. When I know what you're doing right, I can help you reinforce it. But you've got to track the numbers. If you'd like, by the way, I can email you a copy of this spreadsheet, and you can print it out and use it internally. I simply tell people make tick marks with a pencil, then each day at the end of your prospecting session, move those totals over to an Excel spreadsheet. Put a little formula at the bottom so every time you add new numbers, it shows your real numbers down at the bottom. And eventually you start seeing, really it takes about 30 days to get a baseline, but really after 60 days of tracking your numbers, you start to see what's really true. And the reason for that is, Jeff, no one day is going to make a difference in your activity in terms of affecting your numbers. For example, today I might make 15 dials and get through to nobody. Does that mean I suck at cold calling? No, it just means today I didn't get through to anybody. Tomorrow I could make 15 dials and get through to 14 out of 15. Does that mean I'm brilliant at cold calling? No, it just means I had a great day. And if those are really your numbers, that's terrific. But after 30 days, you start to see the real numbers emerge. And after 60 days, I'm confident that they're real. And then from there, you're always looking for, how do I improve? How do I get better based on my numbers? Make sense?
Makes perfect sense. You've also sent this to me before, and I do appreciate that.
Cool. Did I talk about this, communication? Doesn't look familiar? Did I lose you, Jeff? Jeff, can you hear me? Jeff, I can't tell if I lost you or not. So I just typed you a message. Oh, there you are. Okay, too late for that message I just sent. Okay, so have I shown you this before?
No.
Okay, good. Okay,
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I couldn't for about a minute.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so what this is, there was a study done. I was told it was done in the mid-'80s and repeated in the early '90s, and it was a joint study between MIT here on the East Coast and one of the California schools, either UCLA or USC, I never remember which one. And the study was about, how do people understand us when we communicate with them? What makes up the essence of how somebody understands us when we communicate with them? And the numbers they came up with are on your screen. So in a face-to-face meeting, when we're actually selling face-to-face, the way people understand what we're talking to them about is 7% based on the actual, 38% based on your tone of voice, and 55% based on your body language. And in body language, they took into account your physical appearance, the way you're dressed, the way you smell, how clean you are, how you hold your body, what kind of actual physical body language you're using, all kinds of things like that. So not just reading body language like your arms are crossed, but everything goes into it when you're communicating with somebody face-to-face. Now, the interesting thing to me there is more than 50% of how somebody understands you is simply based on how you're dressed, what you look like, things like that. And almost 40% is based on your tone of voice. And only 7% is the actual words you use. I would have thought that words were way more important. And this study is not saying that words are unimportant. They're just saying that in the way people understand you, face-to-face, more than half of it's based on your body language, and almost 40% is based on your tone of voice. Now, when we're over the telephone, either selling them on an appointment or selling them products and services, we lose the body language aspect because they can't see what we're wearing, how we're holding ourselves, whether we're handsome, ugly, or anything in between, or all that stuff. Does that mean we should forget about body language? No, absolutely not. Now, I don't believe that you have to be wearing a three-piece suit with a $200 tie when you're on the phone with people, but I do believe that when you're sitting back with one leg over the chair, it sounds a lot different than when you're sitting up straight, or better yet, standing up. So body language still comes into play when you're selling over the phone or getting an appointment over the phone, but it's not the same thing. So we're going to take out body language, and then it becomes 84% based on your tone of voice, how somebody hears you, and 16% on your words. The point of this is that especially over the telephone, if you sound like this and are very monotone and don't put any inflection into anything you're saying, people understand you very differently than if you talk like I do naturally. And you can hear my voice goes up, my goes down, it speeds up sometimes, it slows down. But your tone of voice, that enthusiasm that I hope comes through when I'm talking to you, is crucial over the phone because it's 84% of how people understand you. So when you're on the phone trying to get appointments, it's crucial that you do whatever you need to do to psych yourself up, and you sound like you're having a good time, and that you're pleasant, and that you use an enthusiastic tone of voice so that people can catch that, because enthusiasm is contagious. Now, do I think you need to be a radio DJ when you're doing that? Hey, news and traffic next, coming right up. Can I have an appointment? You don't need to be that guy, but you do if you're a more calm, serene person, especially over the phone, you do need to pick things up. Make sense?
Makes sense.
All right. So on this page, the actual methodology that I teach for getting appointments over the phone, and I call it GORA, the G stands for scripted greeting. You have to have a scripted greeting. You have to have a scripted greeting for a couple of reasons, mostly because if you don't have a scripted greeting, then when the other person answers their phone, you're going to start stumbling. If there's no script, they pick up the phone and go, "Hi, this is Debbie," and you go, "Oh, hi, Debbie. This is Jeff DeBeach from Verizon Wireless. How are you today?" And then you start stumbling and fumfering and mumbling because you're thinking it up off the top of your head. Even if you've done it before, without a script, you're fumfering. The other thing is, the other reason you want to use a script is because if you say the same exact thing every single time, you'll get the same responses every single time. In other words, you'll get the same objections or the same observations. But if you say the same thing every time, you'll get the same responses every single time. And that's good news, because if you get the same responses every single time, that means you can anticipate the other person's responses, because there's only a handful of them that you're going to get. And typically, the responses that we get when we're cold calling are negative. So it's very useful to use a script, say the same thing every time, and get the same responses every single time, because if you're going to get objections and you get the same ones every time, that means you should be prepared for it. So the second box with the O stands for objections. You're going to give a scripted greeting, and most of the time you're going to get an objection. And then, of course, you have to offer the appropriate rebuttal, which is the R in the third circle. And the fourth step is you must ask for the appointment. That's the A. After you get an objection and give the appropriate rebuttal, you must once again ask for the appointment. If you don't ask for the appointment, what happens is they give you another objection, and then you give them another rebuttal. And then they give you another objection, and they give you another rebuttal, and so on and so on and so forth. And eventually it ends up that you're fighting with them. They're saying A, you're responding with B. You don't ask for an appointment. They say C, you respond with D, because you've got your rebuttals down. They've got their objections down. You've got your rebuttals down. It's kind of a battle, and we lose every battle, because they've got the appointment, they've got the money, and we can't win when we fight with them. So after you give a rebuttal, and by the way, some salespeople, their philosophy is, come on, I just gave you the most brilliant rebuttal. I overcame that objection like you wouldn't believe. Come on, why don't you ask me for the appointment? As if somebody's going to say, wow, that was really good. Okay, you got me. Come on in. Well, that's just not the way it works. So we must remember that after giving the appropriate rebuttal, we have to give them another request for the appointment. We have to ask again. Now, the thing about this methodology is that after you say whatever you're going to say in your opening, and I'm going to tell you what I would say if I was calling you, but after you say whatever you're going to say in your opening, almost every time, and because I track numbers carefully for me, it's when I get down to the end of my greeting, my scripted greeting, and I ask people for the appointment, 93% of the time people tell me no. So 7% of the time after I get done with my opening script, they'll say no. 7% of the time they'll say yes. The thing about that is that the initial thing they say at the end of my script, my opening script, which gets a 93% negative, that negative is a knee-jerk reaction. It's just like when you walk into a department store and the clerk comes up to you. Now I'm going to ask you a question in a second. Don't say the answer out loud, okay? Okay. The clerk comes up to you. You go into Bloomingdale's or Macy's or someplace like that. A smiling clerk walks up to you as you walk in the door. Hi, can I help you today, sir? There's something you say back to them when they ask you if you can help today. Get that in your mind, but don't say it out loud. Got it?
Okay.
Great. Was it no thanks, I'm just looking?
That's correct. For something along those lines, yes.
Yeah, no thanks, I'm set. No thanks, I'm good. It's what we all say to clerks in department stores, even though as you're walking away from the clerk, you turn around, you put your hand to your forehead, you go, oh, wait a minute, where's the underwear? Where's the socks? Where's the suits? Where's whatever you were looking for that day? But our natural, automatic, knee-jerk reaction to clerks in department stores is, no thanks, I'm good. Well, that's the thing about cold calling over the telephone. They have also an automatic knee-jerk reaction to people cold calling them for appointments because cold calling is interruptive marketing. Interruptive marketing. You're interrupting them doing whatever they're doing, which is probably their job. So they're reading an email or they're writing an email. They're reading a proposal, they're writing a proposal. They're chasing their secretary around the desk, they're ordering lunch, they're eating lunch. They're doing one of the 8 million other things that they have to do all day long every day in order for them to make a living, and we're interrupting them at it. So that's why it's called interruptive marketing, and that's why, because we're interrupting them at what we're doing, that almost always they give us that automatic negative knee-jerk reaction, which we call an objection. So the good news is, because it's automatic and we expect it and we anticipate it, we should be prepared with the appropriate rebuttal. Is this tracking for you?
It's a great point.
Great. Now, if I was calling you, Jeff, cold, I've never met you before in my life, but I find that you're the VP of sales over at Verizon Wireless, you would pick up the phone and answer it somehow, and it doesn't matter to me how you answer it, and this is what you would hear. Hi, Jeff DeBeach. And you would say?
Yes.
Perfect. And I would continue with, Jeff, this is Jeff Goldberg of Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And you would say?
No.
And now I'm shocked. Oh, well, we're a sales consulting and training firm. In fact, we work with companies just like yours to help you get more appointments with decision makers, shorten your sales cycle, and close more business more profitably. Now, Jeff, I know you're busy, so I'm not going to waste your time. The specific reason I'm calling you today is to set an appointment. I'd love to come by, find out what you're currently doing about sales skills development, tell you just a little bit about what we do, and see if there might possibly be a match. Hey, Jeff, how's next Tuesday at 3 o'clock? And then I shut up and stop. Now, that whole thing took maybe 12 seconds, maybe 14 tops. But it got my point across about who I am and what I do. And I came right out, and I was direct, and I asked you for an appointment. In fact, I even told you, I don't want to waste your time, which is music to most people's ears. Mm-hmm. So when I get down to the end of that speech and say, how's Tuesday at 3, 7% of the time they say yes, which sounds good, or no, Tuesday at 3 isn't good, but Wednesday at 10 is good, and we set an appointment. Or they give me an objection. 93% of the time they give me an objection. Now, here's another interesting number. I told you before, 7% of the time people say yes, 93% of the time they say no, except I'm also here to tell you that when I get through to the right person, the person I want to speak with, 50% of the time they're willing to meet with me. So now I've told you two different things. One is 93% of the time they say no, and the other one is 50% of the time they say no. So which one is it? Well, after I go through that G, my scripted greeting, and I ask for the appointment, 93% of the time they say no. But after I've gone through 2 objections and 2 rebuttals, that's where 50% of the people I speak with agree to meet with me.
Nice.
Because I know that their initial knee-jerk reaction, just like the ones with the clerks at department stores, I know their initial knee-jerk reaction is simply that. It's what they say to everybody that calls up for an appointment because they're trying to get rid of you, and they're only paying half-ass attention. So it's my job to keep you as engaged as I possibly can while I've got you on the phone, and it's my job to anticipate the negative reaction that you're going to give to me and how I can help you work past that. So let's do a little bit of that. So if you've got a piece of paper somewhere, I'd like you to start writing your script, but I'd also like to give you the formula so that you can do this on your own and, of course, help your others. So I would suggest you have two pieces of paper here. One is to give you the theory behind it, and the other one is to start writing your script. So the first thing that we did was I grabbed your attention. How did I do that, Jeff?
You asked for my name. You just said
I said your name. Exactly right. I said it like a question. Exactly. Good catch on that in your ear, because I say it like a question because you may be the person that answers the phone by saying their name. Hi, this is Jeff, or Jeff at the beach. One of the things for me is I want to say the same thing every single time, because if I say the same thing every single time, I don't have to think about it, and I can focus on what you are saying, which is far more important in the appointment-making process than anything I have to say. Because what I have to do is I have to catch which objection you're going to give me. So it's really important that I'm focused on what you're saying rather than what I'm saying. So I'm going to go through that pitch, ask you for the appointment, and then listen very carefully to what you say back to me. So I grabbed your attention by saying your name, and I can say your name every time if I do it like a question. Because if you go, Jeff DeBeach, I go, hi, Jeff DeBeach. But if you call up, if I call you and you answer Jeff DeBeach, and I go, hi, Jeff DeBeach, as a statement, I sound like an idiot.
Yes,
and of course, the difference is, in a question, your tone goes up at the end, and in a statement, your tone goes down at the end of the sentence. So you simply grab their attention by saying their name. Okay, now on your second piece of paper where I'd like you to start writing your script, please write a greeting. I don't care what greeting you use, hi, hello, good morning, good afternoon, any greeting you like, and then write somebody's name. For this exercise, don't write parentheses, fill in name here. I'd actually like you to write somebody's name. All right, so take a second, write any greeting you like and anybody's name. I personally, by the way, like both names, Jeff DeBeach. If I call you Jeff, you may think, oh, what is this, some smarmy salesperson trying to establish rapport with me by using my first name? Although that's not likely these days, but it's possible. But if I call you Mr. DeBeach, then I'm not going to introduce myself as Mr. Goldberg, so I'm going to elevate you. And I don't want to do that either. I want you on the same level as me. So I'm going to use your first name and be personable, and I'm going to use your last name and be respectful. If you prefer first names, it's okay by me, Jeff. If you prefer using last names, that's okay too. What I suggest is try everything, track your results, and see what gets you the best results. So what did you write so far?
Steve Schiffman.
Okay, so but there should be a greeting before that, either hi, hello, good morning, good afternoon, something like that. So, hi, Steve Schiffman?
Yeah, that's my name. Hi, Steve Schiffman.
Perfect. Okay, good. So you're calling Steve. Say hi when you call and talk to him. No, actually, don't. Okay, the second thing that has to happen is you have to say who you are. This is where you do your brief commercial. You have to identify yourself and your company. Now, there was a phrase I put in before there. I say, my name is Jeff Goldberg with Jeff Goldberg and Associates.
And
do
the
you
best
know
part
us?
you did, I'm going to cut you right off. You asked him, have you ever heard of us? You got him completely engaged. I loved it.
Well, yeah, because remember, we're practicing interruptive marketing, so even though I got their attention quickly by saying their name, they're still reading the email that they were reading while I was talking to them at the same time that they're talking to me. So because you have to answer that question, do you know us or have you heard of us, they re-engage. Now, the challenge for somebody in your business is when you say, I'm with Verizon Wireless, have you heard of us? People go, yeah, of course I've heard of Verizon Wireless. So I'm not quite sure that you get a great result with that one, but you can try and see how it works out for you. It's like when I worked with Cablevision, you know, they didn't call up and say, I'm with Cablevision, do you know us? Because everybody goes, yeah, of course. When I worked for Schiffman, you know, nobody knew DEI Management Group, but when I said, well, you might have heard of our owner, Steve Schiffman, they went, oh yeah, sure, I've heard of him. So the do you know us is optional. Now, in your brief commercial, just like your brief commercial that we put together for selling, you've got to make sure that you mention the features, but also a couple of benefits of what you have to do. So I'm going to repeat mine, then I'll give you a second or two to write yours. So, Jeff, do you know us? And you say no. And by the way, if you said yes, it would be, so you already know that, because I want to make sure that what I want you to know about my company, I want that top of mind, even though you think you already know me. Now, with me, that's not that hard to do because most companies don't know me when I call. With you, they probably have a preconceived notion of who you are and what you do, so you definitely want to make sure that you say, oh, so you already know we're a blah, blah, blah. So with me, it would be, oh, so you already know we're a sales consulting and training firm. We help companies like yours to get more appointments with decision makers, shorten your sales cycle, and close more business more profitably. I really like the phrase, we help companies like yours, we help organizations like yours, we help people like you, we help doctors like you, whatever's appropriate. But I love that phrase in there if you can possibly do it. And the key here is really, it needs to be in your own words. Because if I write it for you, you sound like a wisecracking Jew from New York, which actually may work in your case, but it doesn't work for everybody. Yeah. So why don't you take a second and write your statement for after, hi, I'm Jeff DeBeach with Verizon Wireless. What are you going to say next? And I'll just shut up for a minute or so, and you tell me when you're done.
No, I'm done. I mean, I have mine put together already, but it's done a little
different.
Good. And you're
okay, so what is yours?
You're challenging me because it's not the type of what I've been doing is in my opinion is a little easier, and you're probably going to agree with me. But right now, I like the fact that you're challenging me because you're taking me back to what I have not done in forever. So I think I may stick with what you have, but I do want to tell you what I've been doing.
Please do.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Now. Oh, okay, good. So essentially, here's what happens. I have a list of bids that I search for. They're called the Dodge Reports, and the Dodge Reports give me bids in a specific geographical location in which all construction companies participate in. Let me tell you something. In my territory where I worked, nobody knew their business better than me. I knew where these guys were having lunch, when they were having it, who was eating with them. I felt like a mental midget when I saw these Dodge Reports. It blew my mind. They were companies I never heard of before. I knew nothing at that point. So basically what happens is it's nice. We don't care who wins. We just care who participated. So I'll call up, and my conversation piece will be, hey, this is Jeff DeBeach calling from Verizon. Specific reason for my call, I'm reaching out to all of the participants of the XYZ bid. I'm sitting down with high-level executives just like you, and we're talking about our solutions outside of voice that affect your job site, getting your job sites up and running on the Internet. Instead of waiting 6 to 8 weeks for DSL, we have you up and running in 20 minutes. Your competitors are taking advantage of it. That's why we need to sit down and meet. What day works better, Monday or Wednesday?
Okay. So just give me the part where you say who you are and what you do again before we ask for the appointment. We'll get to that in a second.
Yep. Basically, I just say, hey, this is Jeff DeBeach calling from Verizon.
Right.
And then I tell them, I go,
what can I do for you, Jeff?
Okay, the specific reason for my call, Jeff, I'm reaching out to all of the participants on the XYZ bid. I'm scheduling time to sit down with high-level executives just like you. And we're talking about our technologies outside of voice, utilizing our 4G network, technologies that help your job site trailers get up and running in 20 minutes instead of waiting 6 to 8 weeks for DSL to get on the Internet.
All right, so what you're showing is a competitive advantage. Instead of waiting 6 to 8 weeks to get up, we'll get you up right away.
Correct.
What I would love, if it's possible, is for you to say, what is that going to allow them to do? So does it allow them to communicate with their workers quicker, their vendors? I mean, to me, that's what telecommunications is all about anyways. It allows you to communicate better with your customers, your vendors, your employees.
Did I lose you?
I'm sorry, say that again?
It enables them to complete their jobs. The job cycle that they have finishes a hell of a lot quicker. It makes them meet their deadlines.
Beautiful. So that's what I would say. So I would include, I like your line, as opposed to DSL, instead of getting you up to speed in 6 to 8 weeks, we get you up to speed right away. And what that allows you to do is allows you to finish your job quicker, meet all your deadlines, collect any potential bonuses that there are for early. I mean, I would probably say something like that too, but whatever is going to resonate with them, that's exactly what I'd be saying. Perfect.
No, perfect. I love what you just gave me.
Well, thank you. I do this professionally.
No shit.
Yeah. So you see, you want to make it. Remember when we talked about features and benefits and how you always want to point out the benefit?
Yeah.
Show them what it is. So great. So you get me up quicker. What does that mean to me? How's that going to put money in my pocket? I mean, it should be obvious that getting up quicker, getting your phone lines working quicker, or your voice lines or your data lines working quicker is a good thing. But when you come right out and say, here's what that allows you to do. communicate quicker with your people, communicate more effectively, communicate more efficiently, which helps you finish the project sooner, get paid on time, exceed the expectations of your clients so that they want to use you again, and sometimes, and I think this is true, there are often bonuses for finishing quicker.
Yeah, or you can win your next bid. By the way, just to let you know something, here I am thinking I have this unbelievable, and it does me well, my script, it does me well, but this is that mental midget segment again. Why did I not think about telling them what it means to them in the end? It was so simple, you know, so thank you for this. Seriously, I'm being serious.
That's why they pay me the big bucks, Jeff.
It works. It's worth it, my friend, it's worth it.
Cool, okay. So you're going to say why you're calling, and that's where you're going to say, that's where the point comes that you're going to ask for the appointment. The only reason that you're calling is to get an appointment. Now, we'll talk about qualifying in just a minute if you're going to do it, but really the purpose of an appointment-making call is get on the phone, get the appointment, get off the phone as quickly as you possibly can. So here's how I say why I'm calling. The specific reason I'm calling you today, Jeff, is to set an appointment. Actually, typically I'll say just before that, now I know you're busy, Jeff, so I'm going to get right to the point. And I like throwing that in there because at that point they're thinking, how do I get rid of this guy? So what we want to do is we want to have it pick up in their ear how they're going to get rid of us, which is by telling them what we're doing. But I'm also acknowledging, I know you're busy and I'm not going to waste any of your time. And I've been experimenting that one for the last 3 months, and it's getting a very good result. So personally, I would include
nice.
that. So Jeff, I know you're busy, and I'm not going to waste your time. The specific reason I'm calling you today is to set an appointment. I'd love to come by, find out what you're currently doing about sales skills development, tell you just a little bit about what we do, and see if there might possibly be a match. Now notice who that sentence was about. That sentence is about them rather than me. Most salespeople, I'd love to come by and give you a presentation or a demo on our great product. Well, what I said was, I'd love to come by, find out what you're currently doing about sales skills development or sales training, tell you just a little bit about what we do, and see if there's a match. I've almost made it like I'm really not going to talk about myself very much. And the truth is, in that first meeting, I'm not. I want them to talk a lot and tell me all about themselves. So I find that people like it when they hear that I'm not the typical salesperson who's just going to come in and bore them to tears for an hour or so with tales about how great we are. So it's, Jeff, I'd love to, the specific reason I'm calling today is to set an appointment. I'd love to come by, find out what you're currently doing about sales skills development, tell you just a little bit about what we do and see if there might possibly be a match. So what would you say there?
Well, you're making me change. I love the challenge, by the way.
Good, man.
No, it is, because, you know, it's funny because I've been thinking about what I've been doing also with specific reason, getting to the point a lot. I'm not telling them that. In other words, I'm not saying the specific reason for is to schedule an appointment, the specific reason for my call. I'm not saying that immediately. I'm kind of sandwiching that. That ends after I talk to them about the other people on the bid. So I kind of like yours much better. It's to the point, you know. So anyhow,
yeah, I'm not even positive that I like that you're calling everybody involved in the bid.
Why?
It doesn't make me feel very special.
Interesting.
It might work better if I'm calling selected high-level executives who are working on the XYZ bid. That might feel better to me.
Well, what I'm trying to establish on that, and I love what you're saying, because that may be true. It may very well be. I want to explore it. What I'm saying is that I'm reaching out to only project managers, essentially. They're not high. It could be a janitor. He's not a high-level executive. We know this. But what I'm doing is telling them that I'm reaching out to all of the other participants, the other people on this bid, their competitors. I'm trying to make that the point, and at the same time tell them they're special because they're high-level executives. It's kind of
right.
It's kind of like saying jumbo shrimp. You know what I mean? It's like it's two different things. So that may be a really, really good piece of criticism to take it away. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I'm calling from a bid list. If I'm telling them...
Tell me how you say it one more time, please.
Well, when I reach up, I say, hey, look, hey, Jeff, this is Jeff DeBeach calling from Verizon. The specific reason for my call is to schedule some time to sit down with you. I'm reaching out to all of the project managers involved in the XYZ bid. I'm sitting down with high-level executives just like you, and what we're talking about are blah, blah, blah.
If it was me, I would change it, yeah. it's something like, I've come to learn that you're bidding on the XYZ project, and I've got something that could give you a competitive advantage, help you win this bid. Why don't we sit down and talk? Because when you tell me you're calling everybody, I don't feel special, and I want to feel special.
I like that.
That's just me. Look, if what you're saying now is working beautifully and you're getting, a great number of appointments, or when you were using that, then you should continue.
Yeah, no, I'm currently using it, and it's doing it. But I like changing a lot because you get bored with the same thing. But I kind of like what you're saying a lot. I'm going to incorporate it anyway. See what happens.
Well, I'm less interested in the boredom than I am in what's working well. So my suggestion would be, starting maybe next week, or you could even start it tomorrow. Try the revised script and track your results very carefully for 2 weeks. If you're getting better results using my words, then stick with my words. If you're getting better results using your words, then you should absolutely go with your words, because just because I made them up doesn't make them right. I mean, look, I do this for a living, but so do you. So,
right.
It may be that you're saying the perfect words, although unless you try something different and track the results. That's the important thing. You got to track and measure. So if you start tomorrow, you got to remember that, starting on Tuesday the 25th, I changed the script, and here's the script I used, and you got to give it a representative sample. You can't just do it for a day and say, oh, well, it didn't work. So a week or two of tracking should tell you.
Let me ask you this question. If we say, and again, I love the line, I've come to learn that you're bidding on the XYZ project, what happens if they ask you how?
So how did you learn?
I learned it from the Dodge reports.
Is that secret?
It's unusual for salespeople to be calling from these things. They're made for construction companies. When I saw them, I saw dollar signs. That's why I had the area invest $25,000 on them, soon to be 40.
Is that something that a construction company would be aware of?
Absolutely. They would not. I mean, the Dodge reports they're aware. Forgive me, but for a salesperson to get involved and take that information, they probably have never heard of that before.
So it doesn't sound to me like a negative, and it sounds like something you could turn into a positive and say, well, I specialize in working with the construction industry, and I felt it was a wise investment to invest in the Dodge report.
I love it.
The other thing you could say, if you're not comfortable with that, although I like it too, I mean, what you're saying is, I know your industry. I'm living and breathing in the same space you do. But the other option would be, well, I was confidentially referred to you. Because then the next question is going to be, well, who referred you? I'm sorry, it was confidential, and I would never break your confidence, and I hope you'll understand that I wouldn't break the confidence of the person that referred me to you. Either way is fine. Although I think you might get some play out of the fact that you know their space, so much so that you're investing in the type of things that they would be investing in. I think that buys you something personally. But once again, you'd have to experiment and see.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry about that. I thought you left me during the best part. I almost jumped to my skin. All right, so what I asked you was, you mentioned you specialize in working in the construction industry, and you found it wise to invest in the Dodge reports. That was your wow line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I specialize in working in your industry, the construction industry. So it made sense to me to invest in the Dodge report to keep up to date with folks like you. I got to have a competitive edge just like everybody else does, and that's what I'm calling to give you.
And then you were referred confidentially was the other one, correct?
That's the other option. If you don't, if you try I invest because I'm in your industry and it's not working. You can just go, well, I was confidentially referred to you, and there's really no way to come, because when they ask you, how'd you get my name? Well, I just told you I was confidentially referred, and I would not break your confidence if you told me something confidentially, and I hope you respect that I can't give you the name of the person that referred me to you.
Yeah, you're really giving me some good tweets.
You break it up on me, Jeff.
I said you're really giving me some good tweaks here. I love it. I think it's great.
Good, okay. I heard you that time. Great. Okay, good. So the next thing you have to do is say when. This is where you actually ask for the appointment. In my opinion, the smart thing to do is to, before you pick up the phone, figure out the one time and date that works best on your calendar to make an appointment with the person that you're trying to get on the phone, and then just ask them for that time and date. And the way I do it is, how's Tuesday at 3?
So you're leaving yourself open to the answer no. And I've been trying to avoid that. I've been doing this whole option thing. What day works better?
Oh, is Tuesday good or is Wednesday better? Is morning good or is afternoon better? Is this week good or is when hell freezes over better?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that?
It's a trick. It's called alternative of choice. And I learned that 39 years ago from Tommy Hopkins. It's a trick because supposedly it's, okay, so you're my prospect. I call you. You're a busy executive. In my case, you're the president of a company. You were going to say no to the appointment, but because I didn't give you the option of no, you go, oh, well, I was going to say no, but he said only Tuesday or Wednesday, so I guess I got to choose one of them. I hope you're laughing inside because, of course, that's not going to make a difference. If somebody's going to say no, they're going to say no. What I want to do is I want the busy executive on the other end of the line, in this case you, to look at their calendar, if they're going to give me the appointment, to look at their calendar and go, okay, Tuesday at 3 sounds good. Or Tuesday at 3 doesn't sound good, how's Wednesday at 10? And to give me an alternative. Or they're going to give me an objection. But if you think you're avoiding the no because you're only giving them 2 choices, neither of which is no, it's not going to change a thing. It's one of those things that sounds like it makes sense. It's a great technique in theory. It just doesn't work. It's like, would you like the phone in red or would you like the phone in blue? I don't want a phone. Oh, well, I guess he didn't say I couldn't not take a phone, so I guess I'll take it in blue. Except that's not the way it works. All right?
Okay.
So specify the one date and time that works for you and ask for the appointment and shut up and wait, just like without any closing question. Just shut up and wait. Now, do you qualify people before you go to meet with them?
I typically do. In this instance, I mean, obviously I have the list now in front of me with who they are, but I'll get as far as saying in other circumstances, who other than yourself would be responsible for this?
Okay, let's hold that conversation for just a second because I think it's an important one. But let's go back to qualifying. Are there any questions that you ask them over the phone in order to determine whether or not you'll actually go to see them?
Well, I know they're the person already, though.
Okay.
Right, so
I'm not saying there should be. I'm just asking if you do. I'm not saying there should be questions.
Now,
I'm just asking if you do ask any.
The only other thing is what I alluded to before, but I'm totally open for suggestions. What else?
Wait a minute. Are you the right person?
Right.
Good. Okay. Good. Okay. So my question is really based on, if you're qualifying, are you doing the right kind of qualifying? Now, I'll just tell you that for me, I don't ask any qualifying questions before I go see somebody. I've told them up front I'm a sales trainer and a sales consultant. I've told them why I want to speak with them. I want to talk to them about sales training. Am I going to get to their office and find out they don't have salespeople? No, that would be stupid. I mean, I guess I could get there and find out they don't have any money, so I could qualify them by saying, gee, do you have thousands of dollars, and if you like what I show you, are you willing to write me a check? Except that's not really a reasonable qualifying question, so that one's not going to work. So for me, unless I have to travel more than an hour and a half, anything over 90 minutes, I'll ask a couple of qualifying questions, but other than that, I don't ask any. And my thing is that salespeople tend to use qualifying as a way to weed people out, as a way to find reasons to not go see prospects. I found, though, that the more prospects I see, the more successful I become. So I look for reasons to go see prospects, not for reasons to not see prospects. However, I will say that I don't want you or me or any other salesperson to waste any time. So typically what I suggest is if you're going to ask qualifying questions, then keep them to the bare minimum. Ask the bare minimum number of questions you need to ask in order to find out whether it's worth your time to get in your car or on a subway or a taxi or whatever else to go see somebody, and then go. And I've never worked with a company that had to ask more than 2 questions. So, for example, are you familiar with Optimum Lightpath?
Yes.
Yeah, they're a division of Cablevision, and they sell big pipe and, enterprise phone systems and stuff like that. Well, at the time that I was first working with them, and things have changed since then, but at the time, they only sold to companies that needed 30 phone lines or more. So we changed it from the 15 questions they were asking to, I'm just curious, how many phone lines do you have? Because that tells them whether they should go or not. That was the only thing that was important. Do they have enough phone lines? And if not, of course, do they intend to put any more in the near future? I had a guy once, I was me branch, and I was teaching them cold calling. There's a guy sitting in the back of the room all day long. Clearly, his tie cost more than my entire suit, and his suit probably cost more than my car. You know, one of these highly successful, well-dressed guys. A puss on his face all day long because he was being forced to be there, clearly bored to tears. And at this point, he raises his hand and he says, "Hey, Jeff, I've been doing this a while. First of all, I don't need cold calling training, and when it comes to qualifying, I am going to ask a lot of questions because I don't work with anybody at this point in my career unless they have $500,000 to invest with me." And he told me all his qualifying questions. I had him change it to one. Any idea what that was? What's the one qualifying question I think he needed?
Do they have X amount to invest? I didn't hear the number was.
Yeah, $50,000, $500,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, $500,000. This guy only worked with very high net worth people. I said, well, what about this question? If you like what I have to show you, and that's, of course, it's completely up to you, but if you like what I have to show you, do you have $500,000 you can invest with me right now? That was all he needed to know. What he was doing, in his mind, he was saving himself time. But in my mind, he was missing business opportunities. Because by asking the 15 questions, what he was looking for is the reason not to go. What I want you to do is go. So notice that we're asking the qualifying questions, if any, after we've got the appointment. How's Tuesday at 3? Tuesday at 3 sounds good. Great. I'm just curious if you have $500,000 if you like what I have to show you. Because I think it's easier to start asking questions once somebody's agreed to the appointment. And if you ask them too many questions before you get the appointment, I think you're likely to turn them off and not get the appointment. Finally, once we've qualified them, thank you, if we're going to do that at all, after you get the appointment, I want you to confirm as many details as possible by saying things like, "So great, Jeff, so I'm going to be meeting with you next Thursday, which is September 27th at 2 o'clock. I'm putting that on my calendar right now. I hope you're putting it on yours. Then I'm going to ask you, Jeff, what address will I be meeting you at? Because the address in the database I have may or may not be correct. They could have 15 different locations, and I say, okay, I'll see you Thursday, and he's in Boston, but I'm in New York. So I like them to give me the address we're going to meet at because, again, the more things they confirm with me, the more solid the appointment is. I'm also going to ask the question.
They're putting it down in their calendar.
I hope so, sure. I want this appointment to be solid. I don't want to go somewhere and find out that you weren't there, or that you didn't consider it solid. Right. Then I'm going to ask them the question that you asked, which is who else should be at this meeting? Who else should be at this meeting? And what are their names and what are their titles? Who else should be at this meeting? Most salespeople, when they confirm that they're talking to a decision maker, ask the wrong question. And the question they ask is, Jeff, are you the decision maker? And almost every time, the Jeff, whoever that is, says yes. They all say they're the decision maker until it comes time to sign the contract. Then suddenly you find out, oh, well, yeah, I'm the decision maker, but I got to take this to my boss, Steve, because Steve has to okay it. Oh, really? So in essence, you were not the decision maker, were you? You lying sack of shit. Pardon my French.
Please.
So a better question is, the last time your company made a decision like this, how'd you go about it and who was involved? The last time your company made a decision on telecommunications or on internet service or whatever else you're trying to sell, the last time your company made a decision on wireless services, how'd you go about it and who was involved? Well, that's going to tell you their decision-making process as well as whether or not you're talking to the decision maker. Because if the person you're speaking to says, well, I got the information, then I took it to a committee, and then the committee made a recommendation, and then the project manager made the decision. Well, you know you should be talking to the project manager or at least to the committee. Do we sometimes have to go low and work our way through? Sure. But at least I want to know that before I go. So I absolutely am going to ask the question that you asked, which is either who else should we invite, or the way I ask it, which is, hey, I'm just curious, the last time your company made a decision like this, how'd you go about it and who was involved? And then the last thing I'm going to do is say, great, I'm going to send you an invite which is going to have all my contact information on there just in case you need to reach me before the meeting. What email should I send it to? Now, I do want to send them an invitation, and I do want them to have all my contact information, which when I send it, it's going to specify the name, the date, and all that stuff, the time of the meeting. But really what I want is their email address, because I want to be able to market to them ongoingly. Whether it's before the meeting, after the meeting, if they buy, if they don't buy, I always want that email address. In fact, most marketers will tell you it's the most valuable property that any sales organization can have, having people's email addresses. So I'm always looking for ways to get those. Okay.
So you're asking them which email address should I send it to?
Sure, that's good.
Okay.
What email address do you want me to send it to? Anything like that, and confirm it. Make sure that what you think you heard is what you heard, because it's easy to make a mistake on an email address, and one letter or one number can make a big difference.
Yeah.
All right, you with me?
I'm with you.
All right. The next thing is, what do you say when they tell you no? So I say there are 6 different objections that people tend to give us. They sound like there's 200 different objections, but really all 200 different objections can pretty much be boiled down to the ones on your screen right now. I'm very happy with my current provider. I'm not interested at all. I'm busy. Send me some information. We don't have a budget, or we're under contract with somebody else, or we had a bad experience with your company in the past. So here are the responses to those conversation starters. The first one is, I'm happy with my current provider, which they may not say the words, I'm happy with my current provider. They might say, I'm with AT&T, which means I'm happy with AT&T, or I'm with fill in the blank, with somebody else. So it all means the same thing. That's why we have to use our script each time, so that when we first say, how's Tuesday at 3, we can carefully listen for which objection they're giving us and come back with the appropriate response, the appropriate rebuttal. So when they say, I'm happy with AT&T, or I'm happy with what I'm doing now, or I'm good, or I'm all set, anything like that, you fill in the blank with the name of a current customer of yours. So for me, it might be, well, Cablevision told me the same thing, until they gave you the chance to come in and show them how what we do would work beautifully with what they were already doing. I'd love to come by and show you what we did for Cablevision. How's Tuesday at 3? Now think about that, the psychology there. The typical salesperson, when they say, well, I'm happy with AT&T, says something like this. Maybe not in these exact words, but it sounds like this. AT&T? You must be the biggest idiot in the world. AT&T sucks. You shouldn't be using them. You should be using Verizon. We're great. Those guys suck. We're great. You're dope. Now, you're not saying those words, but in essence, when you say, hey, you should really be with us, you're saying you're an idiot. And here's the problem with that. When you call people idiots, they tend to not give you appointments.
Really?
Did you notice that?
Yes.
So here what you're doing is you're saying, oh, brilliant. You use those guys? Use AT&T? That's great. What we do works beautifully with AT&T. Why don't I come by and show you what we're doing with other companies that are also using AT&T? Now, you know and I know that what we want to do is we want to get in front of them and have them decide to get rid of AT&T. But we can't say that. So here what we're doing is, it's called a pattern interrupt. In psychology, it's called a pattern interrupt. Remember, they're answering the phone. We're asking them for the appointment, and they're giving us the automatic knee-jerk reaction, just like the clerk in the department store. No thanks, I'm just looking. And we're doing what's called a pattern interrupt. We're allowing them to interrupt their automatic negative pattern and change their mind. Does this work every time? Absolutely not. There's nothing anybody can teach you that's going to work every time. What I'm looking to do here is just improve your odds. The second one, I'm not interested, is almost exactly the same, but we're going to take out what we could do to work, what we do would work beautifully, and we're going to, somebody says I'm not interested, which we hear all the time. I'm not interested. Oh, that's okay. Citibank told me the same thing until they gave me the chance to come in and show them how what we do could benefit them. I'd love to come by and show you what I did for Citibank. How's Tuesday at 3? Now, this sounds too basic and too simple, but you have to remember the I'm not interested is their automatic knee-jerk reaction that they give to every single salesperson that calls them over the phone. And, of course, the typical salesperson, when they hear this, goes, not interested? How could you be not interested? You didn't give me a chance to talk, which means you're arguing, which means you're going to lose. Here you're saying, oh, not interested. I got it. My favorite customer, Citibank, told me the same thing until they gave me the chance to come in and show them how what we do could benefit them. I'd love to come by and show you what we did for Citibank House Tuesday at 3. See, here's the thing. Everybody would meet with you. Everybody you call would meet with you if they felt you wouldn't waste their time and that what you had would benefit them. If they knew what you had would benefit them, wouldn't they meet with you? Of course.
Yeah. Yes.
If they knew you would not be wasting their time, they'd meet with you. Well, you're coming right out here and saying, what I have is going to benefit you. That's why you should meet with me. So that's why this one works better than the typical salesperson. I'm busy. This is one of my favorites. The typical salesperson, when they hear I'm busy, says, oh, no problem. When won't you be busy? And if the person was honest, they would say, well, when I die, I won't be busy. But until then, I'm tied up. Except people use this to get rid of you. So what I like to say is, that's okay. I just called to set us time to get together for a no-pressure, no-obligation chat. How's Tuesday at 3? And what we're doing is, they're saying I'm busy and I'm busy forever. We're taking it as I'm busy right now. But remember, the I'm busy is just the automatic knee-jerk reaction that they give to every clerk. I mean, every salesperson that calls for appointments. And by the way, if you don't like the one at the top, you can look at the bottom. That's the second one. When they say I'm busy, go, that's fine. Why don't we just get together next Wednesday morning about 7:30 a.m. I'll bring the coffee and the donuts, or I'll bring the coffee and the bagels. Of course, you have to be willing to meet with them at 7:30 a.m. in case they say yes. But both work fine. Good so far?
Good so far.
Okay. Send literature, send information is the biggest waste of time there is. What it really means is no, except what a salesperson typically does is they send literature and then they follow up and they never get another phone call with the person, or they haven't read it, or it's in my inbox, or some stupid thing like that. So my response to send literature is, hey, I've got a better idea. Why don't we just get together? How's Tuesday at 3? Why don't we just get together? Now, the reason this one works psychologically is because people like to hop on board with a better idea.
And if they're not looking at it as a challenge, as if to say, hey, I'm better than you, that word scares me.
Nope, I didn't say I'm better than you. I said, hey, I've got a better idea. And by the way, it's got to sound, you just thought it up. In fact, all of them, all the rebuttals don't work unless you make them sound like you just thought them up off the top of your head. It's got to sound very natural, like you're actually thinking. And if you don't like that one, by the way, you can use the one at the bottom. We've been in business for, I don't know how many years Verizon's been in business. We've been in business for 110 years. We've got more literature than you can shake a stick at. I really wouldn't know what to send you. Why don't we just get together? How's Tuesday at 3? Let's just get together.
So you wouldn't refer to the competition on that one as well. I spoke to Jeff Goldberg, construction as well. Extremely busy. What I did was I took time off of his plate, blah, blah, blah. He put together 7 minutes.
Yeah, except we didn't say, we're not talking about that I'm busy here. We're talking about send literature.
Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I misread the title. Holy Toledo. And where do we put a fork in that one, Jeff? Sorry about that.
No sweat, pal. All right, so this is when they ask you for send me an email with some information, or send me something in the mail, or put a brochure, or send me a brochure, something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't want to send literature. It's a waste of time. Nobody buys off the literature. So I don't want to do it. So those are the things I say. When they say that we don't have a budget, which I don't think you would hear very often, would you?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. So whether they say I don't have a budget or I'm under contract, the response is the same, except we're going to work with budget, but if it was contract, then you just take the word budget out and put in the word contract. So budget, we're not up to discussing budget. In fact, Jeff, we're nowhere near talking about your budget. Why don't we just get together and see if you like what we have to offer? That way, when your budget opens up, you'll think of us. How's Tuesday at 3? And if they said, well, look, I can't meet with you because we're under contract. Contract? We're not up to discussing contracts. In fact, we're nowhere near discussing your contract. Why don't we just get together, see if you like what we have to offer? That way, when your contract is up, you'll think of us. How's Tuesday at 3? Now, the reason those work is they think you're letting them off the hook, that it's safe to let you come see them because you're not going to pressure them because you already know they don't have the money, or you already know they're under contract, but you're willing to come see them anyways. Now, you and I both know that when we get in there, we're going to find a way to break the contract, or we're going to help them see enough value so that they find the budget, but they psychologically relax. That's why this one works. Bad experience. I had a bad experience with Verizon in the past. I don't want to use you guys anymore. So the first thing you have to do is say, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Jeff, can you go back to that other slide for 1 second?
Yeah,
I
man.
have to cut you off.
Sure. As always, I'm happy to send you the deck, and of course it'll be posted on the recording within a day or two.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. I'll stop then. I apologize. I forgot.
Sure, man. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Somebody tells you, well, no, I don't think so, because we had a bad experience with your company in the past. So the first thing you want to do is sound sincere. Jeff, I'm very sorry to hear that. Can you tell me what happened? When? Excuse me. It's important to hear not only what happened and let them talk, but also when. In fact, that may be more important than anything. Because no matter what they say to the when, you're going to come back with, well, that's why I'm calling. We've made substantial changes to our offerings in the past year, or the past 6 months, or the last 2 years, or whatever the time period they say that's happened. You know, it's 1 day less. So they say it happened 2 years ago. Gee, about 19 months ago, we made substantial change. You know, something that makes sense, of course. She's saying, that's why I'm calling you. We've made substantial changes to our offerings and our services in the last 10 months, and I'd love to get together and share them with you. Look, there's no pressure, no obligation. How's Tuesday at 3? And if you get stuck, just remember these phrases. The first one is, let's just get together. You can say that almost any time, and no matter what they say, because remember, what they're saying is a knee-jerk reaction most of the time. I'm busy. That's okay, let's just get together. I'm not interested. That's okay, let's just get together. No pressure, no obligation. I love that phrase. People don't want to, they don't want a pushy salesperson to come in and try to talk them into something. You're coming right out and saying, look, we're just going to have a chat. There's no pressure, there's no obligation. Take a look. One of my favorites, by the way, and of course this works best if you have more experience rather than less experience, but I would say in my 39 years as a professional sales executive, I've never left anyone's office and had them say, that was a waste of my time. I promise, Jeff, I won't waste your time either. You have to hit the word promise because that's the important word, but nobody said to me that was a waste of time. I promise, I won't waste your time either. I love that one. All right, let's talk a little bit about the gatekeeper. So, the gatekeeper is trained to keep you and me away. They have a boss that pays their salary, and they've been instructed, if anybody calls from Verizon Wireless or Jeff Goldberg and Associates, don't let them through. So the first thing you have to remember is he or she is just doing their job. They're not the enemy. But they're also not your friend. The gatekeeper takes control of the call, assumes control of the call by asking us questions. And typically it sounds like this. Hi, I'd like to speak to Jeff DeBeach, please. Who's calling? Well, immediately the gatekeeper has control of the call by asking me who's calling. So I'm going to answer her question, assuming it's a her. I'm going to answer her question and then immediately follow up with a question of my own so that I resume control of the call. And the question I'm going to ask is she in? So I call up and I say, hi, I'd like to speak to Joan DeBeach. Who's calling? It's Jeff Goldberg. Is she in? That. Notice I lost my happy salesperson voice. Is she in? I want to say that in a firm tone of voice. And the reason for that is I'm trying to sound authoritative. And I'm trying to sound authoritative because people tend to respond to authority. I don't know about you, but when I see those flashing lights in my rearview mirror, I pull over. And did you ever notice police officers typically don't come by and say, hey, what a lovely day. Would you mind please giving me your license and registration? No, it's always license and registration. Because they want to show you that they're authoritative. They want to show you they're in charge. They want you to be intimidated. It's like the reason that state troopers wear boots when they're riding in their car. They're intimidating. They remind you of the Nazis.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, man. It ain't because they're riding a horse. They're in a car. It's crazy. It's designed to intimidate you. So we're going to be forward and firm. I'd like to speak to Jeff, please. Who's calling? It's Jeff Goldberg. Is she in? Yes, she is. Put me through, please. Just like that. Put me through, please. Not nasty. You're just this side of nasty. Firm. Now, if the gatekeeper's good, what they're going to say is, well, what's this call in regard to? Please tell them it's in regards to Cablevision, Citibank. Again, I'm going to mention a client of mine. And then I'm going to repeat, put me through, please. Is she in? Put me through, please. So the whole conversation sounds like this. Hi, I'd like to speak to Jeff DeBeach, please. Who's calling? It's Jeff Goldberg. Is he in? Yes, he is. Put me through, please. Well, what's the call in regards to? Please tell him it's in regards to Citibank. Is he in? Yes, put me through, please. Just like that. Now, if they're a very, very good gatekeeper, what they'll do is they'll say, well, what about Citibank? And then it's time to come clean. I'm a sales trainer, do a lot of work with companies like yours, helping them get more appointments, shorten their sales cycle, close more business more profitably. Done a ton of work with Citibank doing exactly that. I'm positive Jeff's going to be interested in what I have to say. Is he in? Yes, he is. Put me through, please. Like that.
What happens if you get someone who decides on their end that they don't think it's going to be interesting towards their boss? I'm curious to see how you handle that.
Well, so you've gone through 3 levels, and they've said, no, he wouldn't be interested in that?
Correct.
Great. I believe he would, and you know him better. What's the best way to reach him? And then I'm going to try to go around the gatekeeper rather than through her. I'm going to call at hours when the gatekeeper's not there, like before 9, after 5, often between 12 and 1 when the gatekeeper takes lunch. I'm going to try to email them directly if I can. And if I have to, if the deal seems lucrative enough, I might get very creative and do some all kinds of crazy things. Go to Payless and buy a box of sneakers, cheap sneakers, and take one out and send it to Jeff DeBeach with a note inside that says, hey, been trying to get through to you. Now that I've got one foot in the door, what do I need to do to get the other one in?
Oh, yeah,
with my business card in there.
We've had someone in our company allegedly do that. I thought that was in a book when I heard that. That's funny.
Yeah, there's all kinds of cute things you can do. If you're not going to do that with everybody, but I used to work with a guy at DEI Management Group named Steve Mulch, M-U-L-C-H, like mulch. He picked out 20 large companies that he wanted to get into, and he tried to call in, but he couldn't get into any of them. So he actually had a box made up. You know that advertising campaign, Got Milk, which shows people with the white milk mustache? Mm-hmm. So he had a box made up that when you open it up, on the cover it said Got Mulch, and when you open up the box, it had a little bag of mulch in there, and now that I've got your attention, give me a call. 19 out of 20 called them. 19 out of 20 executives at large corporations. So is it corny? Yeah. Does it work? Yeah. Every time? No. But there are lots of ways to get through. So that's the best way of getting past the gatekeeper. Now, if you're knocking on doors in person, then the opposite is true. When you're knocking on doors in person talking to gatekeepers, you have to be nice to them, you have to befriend them, you have to make them your ally and try to get past them that way. But over the phone, that just doesn't work. It does not work on the phone. All right?
Agreed.
Let's talk about voicemail. So there's about 150 ways to leave a voicemail message, and 148 of them work great. We salespeople tend to use the 2 that don't. The first one that doesn't work is not leaving a message. If you don't leave a message, they can't call you back. So every time you call, leave a message. The other one that doesn't work, which most salespeople do, is the long rambling voicemail, which tells them everything about everything and tells them who we are and what we do and why we're calling. That doesn't work either. That one sounds like this. Hi, Jeff. This is Jeff Goldberg. Hey, we have the same name. You don't know me, but I'm with Jeff Goldberg and Associates. Yeah, same name as mine, same first name as you and same last name as me. It's my own company. We're a sales training company, do a lot of work with companies like yours to help them improve sales, get more appointments, shorten their sales cycle, close more business more profitably. I'm calling you even though we don't know each other because I wanted to get together and have a meeting with you. I'm actually wearing sweatpants right now. I was wearing a suit earlier because I was out with clients, but haven't eaten lunch yet, so I'm getting a little hungry. The ex-wife's not busting my balls too badly, so that's good. You would delete that message 10 seconds in. I would delete that message 10 seconds in, and so would anybody else. Plus, I've given you every bit of information you need to make a decision about whether you want to call me back. Do I need a sales trainer? No, so I'm not calling back. Do I need a sales trainer? Yes, but I'm too busy to call him back right now. And even in the best of circumstances, get a return call on their time schedule. Well, I'm looking for a return call now. So less is always more on a voicemail, and curiosity is what gets people to call you back. So the voicemail I leave sounds like this. Hi, Bob. This is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is, and then I'm going to pause because I want to give him time to pick up a pen, and then I'm going to say my number very slowly. My phone number is 516-608-4136. Bob, I'm calling you regarding Citibank. Once again, I'm going to name a client of mine. Verizon Wireless, whoever it is. I'm calling you regarding Cisco systems. Once again, my number is 516-608-4136. I'm always going to say my number once at the beginning of the message and once at the end of the message, and then I'm simply going to hang up. No have a nice day. Certainly no please call me back or call me back at your earliest convenience. None of that. I'm leaving you a message, and I expect you to call me back. Now, if you don't call me back and a week has gone by, I'm going to leave you this message. It's almost the same, it's just slightly stronger. Hi, Bob, this is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is, and I'm going to pause again, and I'm going to say my number slowly again. I'm going to say, Bob, I called and left a message for you last week, but I haven't heard back from you, so I thought I'd try you again. I'm calling you regarding Citibank. Once again, my number is 516-608-4136. And if you don't call me back after that one, sure, it's, hi, Bob, this is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is 516-608-4136. Bob, I called and I left a message for you last week, but I haven't heard back from you, so I thought I'd try you again. I'm calling you regarding Citibank. Once again, my number is 516-608-4136. So it's just slightly stronger. I'm kind of giving you a little guilt. The third message, which is a week later, is a little stronger. And that one is, hi, Bob, this is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is 516-608-4136. Bob, I've called and left you 2 messages over the last couple of weeks, but I haven't heard back from you. Bob, would you please give me the professional courtesy of a quick call back? I'm calling you regarding Citibank. Once again, my number is, and then I repeat the number. Now, that one takes balls. You have to be assertive to leave a message like that. But here's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying if you don't call me back, you're being unprofessional and you're being discourteous. And here's the call I get back on this one. Jeff, I am so sorry. I know you called me a couple of times. I've been very busy. How can I help you? Nice. Now, I'd be lying if I said nobody ever gets upset. Occasionally you'll get somebody who calls you back and says, how dare you call me unprofessional? I didn't say you were unprofessional courtesy of a call back. No, somebody gets pissed off. But there's so few compared to how many people do call me back after that message that it's well worth the risk.
That's a great voicemail.
Thanks, man. Let's talk about the best time to call because we're actually almost out of time. The key is doing it every day. If I don't make any calls today, then 5 or 7 months down the line I can't get paid because it takes me 5 to 7 months to get paid from the time I first make an appointment. So if I don't make any calls, let's just say it's 5 months. If I don't make any calls today, I can't get paid 5 months from today. If I don't make any calls tomorrow, I can't get paid 5 months from tomorrow. And you add enough of those days with no prospecting in, eventually there's weeks at a time or months at a time when I can't get paid. But by making at least a few calls every single day, I greatly increase the odds of closing a deal somewhere down the line. So calling regularly is the thing. Doesn't matter when you call. I've tried every time of day and every day of the week, including weekends and late evenings. Nothing seems to make a difference other than calling consistently. Here's some final things. Go ahead.
I thought I remember Schiffman saying something about that, where someone challenged you guys in your class that Friday afternoons don't work, and you guys proved
that story was actually my mentor in the business, Steve Bookbinder, who worked right under Steve Schiffman. He was the lead trainer. He was in Chicago doing a program with an insurance company on the Friday of, I always forget, Labor Day weekend. Bunch of insurance guys, and at the end of the day, about 4 o'clock, Steve wraps up the program, and the boss says, hey, wait a minute, before you go home, let's get on the phone for an hour and make some calls. And like 20 guys made something like 26 appointments in an hour on the Friday of Labor Day weekend. So wow. You can call anytime. You guys got to make calls regularly. In fact, you could say almost anything, but by picking up the phone and regularly dialing, you increase your odds of getting an appointment. Here's some final notes on excelling when you're making cold calls. The first one is pick up the phone, dial, record your results, and then make another call. You can analyze later, but what you want to do is make sure that when it's time to call, just call. So if you're going to do research before you call, do your research at night, come in with your cold call list in the morning, pound it out. When I make cold calls, I do them first thing in the morning. Not that that's the best time to reach people, but it's the most important thing I could do every day. So I'm looking to make sure I get that done. Plus, it's also the time of the day that I'm sharpest. I'm much sharper at 8 a.m. than I am at 3 in the afternoon, because by 3 I'm fading. I also think you need to smile. Put a real smile, physical smile on your face. Because when you've got a real smile on your face, you sound like you've got a smile on your face, and that sounds better than the person on the other end of the line. And you want to sound like you truly believe that you've got something terrific for the person that you're talking to. Because if you're not excited about it, they're not going to be excited about it. I also stand up, or at least sit up straight when you're making your calls. Because when you breathe through your chest, which is where most people breathe from, you sound breathy and your voice gets tired easily. Any professional singer knows, or a professional speaker knows, you speak from your diaphragm, which is really in your belly. When you sit, your diaphragm is contracted, but when you stand, your diaphragm expands and you sound better. Plus, when you stand, you tend to gesture with your hands like you would normally when you're talking to a person, so you sound more natural. You also want to make sure that every time you call, you either speak to the person you're looking to speak with, or leave them a message. And with voicemail, my rule is leave no more than one message per person per week, and no more than 3 in a month. If somebody hasn't called you back after 3 weeks and 3 voicemails, set yourself a tickler to try that person again in a month or 2 or 3, and then move on. Because if they don't call you back after 3 voicemails, the message they're sending you is, I don't want to talk to you, at least not right now. With the gatekeeper, make sure you try not to sell the gatekeeper. Try to give him or her as little information as possible. And by the way, if they say, well, Jeff's not in, I'm going to ask, does he have voicemail? Because I'd rather leave my message in my words than them take a message. But sometimes they say, well, no, I'm the voicemail. I'll take the message. So in that case, the message is almost the same as I would leave on voicemail, the message being, my name is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is 516-608-4136. And then I'm going to say, please be sure to tell her it's regarding Citibank or Dunkin' Donuts or whoever. Please be sure to tell them it's regarding whatever customer you're going to mention. And then get off the phone as quickly as possible. Thanks, have a great day, and hang up. What you don't want, after you say, please be sure to tell them it's regarding blah, 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 is for the gatekeeper to come back and say, what about blah, blah, blah. And if they do that over the phone when you're leaving a message, all you have to do is say, I'm sorry, I'm being called into a meeting, I've got to run, and just get off, hang up the phone and get off. I don't care that the gatekeeper's pissed off that she doesn't know what it's regarding when I'm leaving a message, because she still has to give her boss the message.
Can you repeat why? I'm sorry. Someone called me while you were saying that. So when you're saying, why would you get off the phone?
Okay, so I call, I get the gatekeeper, I'm trying to get through to you. She says you're not in, or can't talk right now. I'm going to say, can I leave, does he have voicemail? Because I'd rather leave a message in my voice, using my words, than with the gatekeeper. But sometimes what they do is they say, no, I'm the voicemail, I'll take a message. So I'm going to leave you my name, I'm going to leave you my number, and then I'm going to tell the gatekeeper, please be sure to tell him I'm calling regarding Dunkin' Donuts or any customer of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And then get off the phone. Thanks, have a great day. Before about Dunkin' Donuts.
I got you. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
And if she does say, well, what about Dunkin' Donuts? I'm sorry, I'm being called into a meeting, I've got to run. And hang up the phone and get off. Because I don't have to tell her anything. But she does have to give the message to her boss. Okay?
Gotcha. And again, I want to apologize. I got interrupted, but the only time I ever look at the phone when we're in session is when it's the divorce lawyer. That's who calls.
Don't sweat, Bill. I understand. Don't sweat it. Hey, you're paying me. Don't worry. The next thing is ask for the appointment. If they show resistance, if they give you an objection, give them 1 rebuttal. Don't give them 5 rebuttals. Give them 1 and then ask for the appointment again. You don't want to shoot all your bullets at once. What you want to do is shoot 1 bullet, see if they fall down, and then save the rest of your bullets.
Right.
Shoot another one if you have to, but if you don't have to, don't. And don't try to sell over the phone. Also, don't ask, how are you today, unless they ask you first. That how are you today conversation is a waste of time. They don't care how you are. You don't care how they are. And it's just delaying the inevitable. What I want to do is get to the point. And I don't want to do anything that slows me down. When you're calling for appointments, do that and do nothing else. If you're doing it right, it's not going to take up very much time in your day. You also want to try to track your results very accurately. It doesn't take much time. And, as a manager, if you give me the activity, I can help you improve. Because I can, if your dials to completed calls ratio is off, I know you're either having trouble getting past gatekeepers or leaving or using rebuttals. If your completed calls to appointments ratio is off, I know that you don't know your rebuttals. So I know how to help you if you give me accurate information. You also want to not use jargon that they're not going to understand. So we used to work with LightPath a lot. They used to talk about the line of demarc, except the office manager at a doctor's office doesn't know what the line of demarc is. Now, you probably do, and anybody in telecom does, but nobody else did. So they would say that, and the other person would be lost. You don't want to do that. You also want to time your calls. Now, these days, almost every phone has a timer on it. I don't mean you have to record the time of your calls. Just kind of keep an eye on how long your calls are taking. If they're consistently taking more than 5 minutes, something's wrong. You're probably getting beat up, or you're selling over the phone. I don't want you to do either. 3 to 5 minutes tops is what it should take. You also never want to make an appointment to make an appointment. So if somebody says, well, give me a call next Monday and we'll set something up, my thinking is this. It was hard enough to get you on the phone the first time. I'm not calling you next Monday. I got you on the phone right now. Let's make the appointment. But you can't say those words. So what you do say is when they say, well, I don't, often they'll say, I don't have my calendar in front of me. So I'll come back with this. Hey, look, I've got my calendar right here. Why don't we set the appointment right now so that you don't have to worry about it next week? And I know you don't know your calendar, but do you think that Tuesday at 3 works good? And they say, well, I don't know. I tell you what, I'm going to put it down for next Tuesday at 3 since you're not sure. I'll send you an email with a calendar invite. If for any reason Tuesday at 3 doesn't work for you, just get back to me and let me know, and we'll reschedule. Not a problem, but at least this way we have it on the books. Same thing when they say, well, I do want other people at the meeting, but I don't have their calendars. Well, does Tuesday at 3 work for you? Great. Let's set it up for Tuesday at 3. If you find out from one of the other people they can't make that, just write back to me or call me. We'll reschedule to make it right for everybody. But at least this way we've got something out on paper. All right? You should also, if possible, rehearse each day before you get on the phone. So, pick a partner. So if you were my partner, I'd say, hey, Jeff, excuse me, I'm about to get on the phone and make some cold calls, and I need to, just get my brain in gear. When you role play with me, you be the customer. Just give me a couple of objections at the right time, because you want your brain to be in gear, and you really want to make sure that it sounds like you're having a real conversation, making it up as you go along, and you have to remember that over the phone, tone of voice accounts for 84% of how they understand you. If it's legally and technically possible, the best thing you can do is record your calls and listen back to them. You'll find amazing things out when you listen to yourself selling somebody over the phone on an appointment. Mostly it's that we don't listen to what they're saying. Prospects are concerned about wasting their time and being talked into something or buying something that they don't want or need. Remember to use the phrases, no pressure, no obligation, as well as, let's just get together. Now, if they're giving you objections, if they give you the same objection 2 times in a row, they win, and it's time to get off the phone. 3 different objections and 3 different rebuttals, once again, they win. If they're so committed to not getting together with me that they can give me more than 3 different objections, they win. So they tell me, I'm busy. That's okay, I just called to set an appointment. Well, I'm really not interested. Well, Cablevision told me the same thing until they get blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm under contract. That's okay, I just called to see what, let you know what we're doing. Why don't we get together, no obligation, take a look at what we're doing. I understand you're under contract, but that way when your contract's up, blah, 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 blah. They come up with another objection, they're more committed to not getting together than I am to getting together. So 3 different objections, 3 rebuttals, they win, or 2 of the same. So I'm busy. That's okay, I just called to set an appointment. I was Tuesday at 3. Jeff, I just told you I'm busy. Sorry. Must have had wax in my ears. I'll call you some other time. And when all else fails, you can almost always say, look, I understand. Let's just get together. I've never left anyone's office and had them say that was a waste of time. I promise. I won't waste your time either. How's Tuesday at 3? And that, my friend, is the end of today's session. Any questions on anything we went over?
No, just as long as you don't mind sending that over to me, I would really appreciate it.
I will send you the deck, and of course, as always, I will send you the recording link as soon as I've got that done, which will be probably tomorrow.
Beautiful.
And the only thing we need is session.
Wow, we're already at the end.
Yeah, this was session 6, my friend. We're up to session 7. I'm free next Monday in the afternoon at the same time if that's good for you.
Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Sure, man.
Next Monday is what, the 1st?
Monday is the 1st, yeah.
Hold on. I got to get onto my other one here. Sorry.
That's what?
I've got 5 computers in front of me. Bear with me. It's the worst.